morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever you're listening to this. We're thankful you're listening to this. But right now, you're listening to HouseAct Podcast with your co-host and co-founder, Casey Freeman, and
the other one. Me, co-host, co-founder, Justin Hall. Very excited with us. It's really cool. Most of these episodes are like really good blasts for the past. At the top of the wonderful, wonderful hill of success, we get to find another one of our friends. Today we have with us the fantastic and fabulous Ren King, actor, director, extraordinaire, singer, performer. It's hard to find something that they don't do. Ren, greet the people.
Hello to the people. Hey, how y'all doing? My name is Ren, and I use they, he pronouns, and I'm happy to be here.
It's a good life.
Have you, Ren? OMG. Okay, I'm going to get it together. How are you? How are you doing today, Ren? Thank you again for coming on the show. Oh
my gosh, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me. I'm so happy to be a part of a HouseAct or a HouseAct episode of this podcast. I'm a big fan of y'all's work and y'all's artistry and have been since college. So it feels really good to be able to still, reach our artistic trenches out to each other and still be able to collaborate today. But I'm feeling very, very blessed, very, very good today. The weather outside is cats and dogs. I will say, I just did a 3-hour drive from Metro Atlanta to Charlotte, and it just rained the whole time. It was just sheets of water, but it was great. I listened to a good podcast and playlist and, made my merry little way.
Nice.
I'm glad you made it safely.
Me too.
Yeah. What's your go-to road trip podcast?
Right now, it's First People's Voice, First People's Nation Voice. It's an all indigenous, all native produced and hosted podcast. And they bring different practitioners, healers, medicine workers, doctors, psychologists, anthropologists onto the podcast and kind of talk about Native history as it appears on Turtle Island here in America and then out in the modern world. And so honestly, I've heard a lot of different concepts that I haven't thought about before, like specifically in the film industry when it comes to indigenizing is a word in the industry, specifically like with Moana, how it was about the Hawaiian people, but they used like Samoan actors or they used people of different indigeneity that looked Hawaiian or could pass, or like the passing of indigeneity, depending on, what's needed. So that has been really cool. I love a good thinker when I'm on the road.
Yeah, that's good, important work.
Yeah.
And next time you have a road trip, cue up HouseAct right after that.
Right after that.
So some context for the people. Casey and I met Ren while studying theater in college. Ren was actually in the first play that I was ever in when I went to college. Shout out Animal Farm. We had boots on our hands. Ren was getting speeches, trying to become the pig president. It was a time. And since it's been a long run, we've gotten, some pretty good accolades to Ren's name in Atlanta, on to New York, some off-Broadway work, and a pretty cool feature role in recurrent TV show. All wonderful sneak peeks before we jump on into the real nitty-gritty. Ren, laying some foundation down, what do you think people need to know about you when we dig into this?
That's a really good question. What I think that people need to know about me is, I'm trying to think of this in the context of people who've never interacted with me before or who really don't know me, but I would say I'm a simple guy. I'm a pretty simple guy with simple thoughts. I really, when people say they have an old soul, I guess, some people say that's trauma. Some people, it just kind of feels like I've been here before sometimes, in a way. So I kind of, I try to approach things in a way that is, I don't know, or it seems that I approach things in a way that seems a bit esoteric or sometimes a little out there, according to my mother, a little woo-woo. So I'm woo-woo here and there. Actually, very down. I don't know why I said that. I mean, very down. I just started studying herbalism and I'm interested in learning folklore, or continuing my knowledge of folklore, of African American folklore, and specifically African folklore, not just African American, where those origin stories come from. What do they look like? The first man and the first woman. What is that outside of the biblical context? What does that look like in Senegal? What does that look like in Ghana? What does that look like in Nigeria? And so that's been very interesting. So, I'm gonna shout into that mic. Yeah. And I guess the other thing about me is that I'm scattered, scatterbrained. So it will be a web of thought and concept, very much like a Prezi presentation. Y'all remember you had to do Prezi, and it was
I was always so jealous. I couldn't make a good Prezi.
I couldn't make a good I never.
I couldn't.
It was a science. It was a science, and so that's kind of what my thought process is, kind of moving around like that. Like,
I think that's also like really interesting to say, because like in my experience, like working with you, Ren, like I kind of always look to you as like stability in a sense, like also for the fact of like the fact maybe that you said like you're esoteric, like, and like maybe it is that you're a little bit scattered. Like I think that in itself, like I look to that as a fact of like you are a stable creative, and the fact that you aren't afraid to be in that sense, if that makes sense. And I really have always admired that in you. So yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like
it makes a good artist to be able in that chaos, to be able to, push forward and get out, get to something. You got to be a little wild. You got to be a little out there, or else you're just going to do something everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
I got to ask. So we met you. You were primarily acting and whatnot. Last I heard, there was a big directing branch that took over for you. Where did that come
What's
from?
up with
How did
that?
that come?
That
How did the
was
scatterbrain?
It's actually really funny that y'all bring up the directing, because it kind of happened in a scatterbrained situation, a Prezi situation in the same way. So this was back in, 2020? I want to say it was 2023. It was after I finished filming BMF after that same year. So yeah, 2023, October 2023 was my directorial debut since high school. And I got this job because I was working at Lincoln Center the year prior as the marketing and outreach coordinator. I've worn many hats as a creative, and as an actor in New York City, you have so many jobs. So one of them was working in the corporate sphere at Lincoln Center. And my coworker, who worked in the marketing and ticketing department, he had a theater company in Michigan. And the first day we both started on our first days together, and he said, I have a job for you. I would love for you to direct this thing. And I said, we just met today, and you've never seen anything that I do, but okay. And so that's kind of what happened. And then we kept working together throughout the year and got to know each other. And then, I got to, audition some actors and to be able to pick that out. Being on the production side of that is something new. I've also kind of been in the stage manager side, the production stage manager side, tech, wardrobe, everything. So having this director's hat on was refreshing, and it was cool. It was like a different pair of glasses. And so, yeah, that's kind of what happened. We rehearsed in New York for a few weeks. It was a play called Fade by Tanya Saracho. And it's a 2-person show, and it deals with the Mexican American identity and then the American who happens to be Mexican, or basically a Mexican who was born in Mexico and then emigrated to the United States, and the differing experiences with that and privileges that come with that, or privileges that don't come with that. It was awesome. It was actually a really cool show. And we put it up in Holland, Michigan for a couple weeks. And we had talkbacks after every show. And if you don't know, Holland, Michigan is very red. It's a pretty red small town, like one stoplight. And we've had, as scary as it kind of was, we had some really, really awesome conversations. Myself and the 2 actors, we were both Black, brown, Afro-Latino people, visibly, and walking around and just being in a space where, we stood out. But there are a lot of beautiful things that came out of that experience from the people in the audience, and from just being in that area, that landscape around the lakes and things like that. It was just awesome.
And that's why I love a talk back.
That's dope. I have more questions about that. I have torn between asking you 2 questions. And, but like, I think you mentioned like you directing, stage managing, having to wear many hats. I think that's definitely that's quite a few of our experiences in the industry as a whole. Like you can't just have one art that you do. You have to be multifaceted, and that's a beautiful thing. But of all the things that you do under the sun, what would you say is your favorite? Or is it that depending on the season, or what you're going through or experiencing in your life, that's where you're like, my medium for expression is directing or acting or tapping or,
This is a wonderful question. And I definitely have some different angles about it. I would say it depends. I think seasonally is probably the most accurate way I would describe how I move in terms of my artistry. Like there are some months, maybe it's weeks, sometimes it's even years where I feel like this is my focus. I'm going to focus on acting, or it just feels something that I feel a bit more called to than the rest. And not to say that I wouldn't do the other things like I would sing or would dance, but it'd be more like, this is what I feel like I want to try to make money off of right now. This is what I want to use to just express, my day-to-day, what's going on. So I'll speak presently. At this moment in time, I would say singing is kind of what I've been doing a lot more of lately. And specifically it's karaoke. I love karaoke. I will go to karaoke every day of the week. I will go to public karaoke. Dark Horse Tavern in Atlanta. Yes, absolutely. They have a live band on Thursdays sometimes, which is awesome. I think one of the best forms of storytelling is through karaoke, going to watch people perform karaoke. Because for me, in a way, it's different than like going to see a concert or going to see a musical. When it's karaoke, it feels a bit more raw. It feels authentic. It feels like, oh, I can tell somebody had a bad day at work and they're just trying to expel this out in this song. And it doesn't have to sound perfect. It doesn't have to sound trained. And some people are and some people aren't. But I think in terms of expression right now, for me as an artist, it is definitely through karaoke. It feels the most honest right now. And sometimes for me, that's through acting, it feels the most honest right now. Sometimes with directing, it feels the most honest. Whatever feels the most honest and what feels authentic and true to me at this moment is what I will focus on, or just feel or naturally drawn to do.
I love that. So what's the go-to karaoke song?
Glad you asked, because I have a notes app that I've been keeping up for years, okay? Because I'm not going to be caught with my ass out. Wait, can I cuss on you?
Yeah, we say bad words.
Yeah,
here.
you're good.
Okay. I mean, I only said ass, but I don't want to get... But it's If I Ain't Got You by Alicia Keys. That one's always very good. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know you'd be taking out a house with that one.
It's fun. But it's also fun because people sing along. And when you see everybody in the room singing along to someone at karaoke, especially if they start off a little shy, but everybody knows the words, it's like the collective energy that someone would feel, when you're watching a play or watching a sports game. It's just contagious in a way. It's one of those effervescent feelings that you can't really explain. It just is. So, yeah.
I agree with that completely. In a good karaoke song, like it has to be something that people want to chime along, like into get involved in. Because otherwise, like, yeah, you can have a personal experience. I'm never going to take that away from somebody on the stage, being like, this is my song. I need a moment, like you said, to get out my feelings here. Like, love that. But also, again, join in, feel what I'm feeling in this moment. And If I Ain't Got You, woo, that's a great one. That's a great one.
I always have fun.
Okay.
Especially after one margarita. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to sing it.
One margarita. Okay, cool. All right.
So, yeah. On that note, we talk about these different types of art forms and these different locations. I really want to delve into how your identity is expressed and received throughout these different mediums. For those listening, congrats. We've made it to the arts and intersectionality episode. I think it's a really important topic for us to cover, because of how politicized it is at the time, and, how even though a lot of different, gender fluid people have existed in the world, it hasn't always gone expressed. And even when it's expressed in art, it's always expressed in like different avenues and mediums. What do you think between you know, your different forms of arts as far as acting, as far as directing and singing? Where do you feel like there are some areas where your identity was accepted the best or the least? Is it different cities where it's accepted the most? What are your thoughts?
Great question. I'm also gonna ask you to just repeat that last little bit of the question, just because it cut out for me. So I got the reception in different cities, but there was a part of the question before that.
Yeah. Are there, cities or artistic mediums that you can tell your identity is getting accepted more or less than others?
Yeah, for sure. Right off the bat, theater. Theater is incredibly more, at least in my experience, I've had the amount of roles that I've read for or that I've been able to play in theater is leaps and bounds what would be considered, my range and TV and film. I think when it comes to theater, it's like I think it's kind of like similar to college. I'll say, maybe I'm projecting, but it was like the film kids and the theater kids. You know what I mean? Like the theater kids were still the fucking losers, and then the film kids they're still losers, but they're like, I'm going to NYU for grad school, or whatever. And it was, or we had some of those who wanted to go for theater too. It didn't work out that way. But yeah, so I would say in terms of theater, there's just a lot more room for experimentation. And I will say even that is becoming smaller and smaller because we keep seeing revival after revival after revival after revival. And we're not seeing as many new works, not as many new works that could reflect this current climate, that could reflect this more gender expressive generation or period in history that we're in. And because that's a risk. That's a financial risk. That's a career risk for, everybody involved, whether you're the soups or you're backstage or you're on stage. It's a risk. And, risks cost money. And people in that area don't really like to spend money if it's not a guaranteed, profit. So because of that, I think we're losing opportunities to develop different tropes even. I mean, we've seen, I'm going to bring up Tyler Perry. We've seen Tyler Perry and we've seen, the typical tropes of the Black experience that he likes to tell, specifically the ones where everyone ends up at church at the end. If more people were taking risks, we could tell a story maybe that doesn't end that way, that there's not a monopoly on types of tropes because they're the most consistent or they made the most money. So all of that to say, I would say I get more expression in theater, specifically with smaller theaters, specifically with more local theaters. It's not always the Lord theaters or the big ones that pay you the most. If anything, those are just, bigger boxes you have to be in, so to speak, as a person, as an actor, as a performer, as an artist. So yeah, I would say that is more accepted, or photography. Photography, I think, as a medium for gender expression is something that I think not only is more accepted, but I think is more effective. I think, at least for me, I haven't, I'm not a model, but I do like to take self-portraits of myself just so I know what I look like proof that I was here. And there are times where there are certain photographs where I feel extremely euphoric and gender-like, where I feel this is exactly what I think I look like in my head. I want to look like that. And so I would say for that, it just has more opportunity to shape. Yeah.
Just so you know, I'm going to be overlapping this section with a montage of photos that prove that you're a model.
Yo, I was going to say, like, if you don't follow Ren on Instagram,
Not the
the fits are crazy.
No, but the thing is,
and there's always a set of glasses, and I love a good set of glasses.
Yeah, I love accessories. That's true. I say model in the fact that I don't pursue it. Like, it's not something that I.
Like,
it's just natural.
I'm considered it, but sometimes when I get in front of the camera and someone says to me, "Pose," I freeze up. And for those of you that was just listening, that was just me doing, the standing emoji, the emoji where the person's just standing there. Some of y'all will know what it is. That's basically the face and energy that I was giving in that. So yeah, I think I have, when it comes to photography or modeling to fit an image of a photographer, I think that's where I get lost in translation. It's not, I just don't feel confident in the knowledge about it to be able to consistently do it. Not in like a way of like, oh, I probably can't do this. But like,
I think that's lovely. And honestly, with art history, that actually tracks. When it comes down to it, like photography, especially when it comes to queer arts and study, photography has been one of the oldest and most accelerated forms, because what are you gonna do? Say I can't take a picture? You can shut the door off from somebody, being in the film or being on the stage. But if folks that are part of the community are actively engaging, you can't stop it. There was a absolutely wonderful exhibit at the Hyde Museum about like 1800s queer women in like Black queer women in the 1800s, early 1900s. In the Deep South, and their photos that were taken. Basically, more evidence that despite what's being repeated in the news, these people and communities aren't like a new thing. It's just been something adamantly ignored. So yeah, I love that answer, actually. You don't hear people talk about photography as identity expression nearly enough.
I mean, it feels like kind of crazy because I feel like, well, I guess I think it's crazy and I think it's not, because now we live in a society today where it's so readily accessible to look at ourselves, to see a mirror, to have a selfie camera, to have our pictures taken. It's almost a chore at this point. And I think a lot with AI coming in and kind of shifting the axis of expression and art and what that means. Can you make art without empathy? Things like that.
I wanted to touch a little bit on the profitability of like stories of like queer people. I think my question is really like, how, if not monetarily, how do we convey to the people who put the money behind it that like these are stories that deserve to be told at the end of the day? Because like I honestly, like, I don't think it always depends on like profitability. Like at the end of the day, value is not just in the money. Value is also in people's experiences. How do you think, what is the best way to convey that to the people, I guess, that are putting the money behind it or wanting to produce certain shows in a season or gathering their shows to produce in a season? That's a loaded one that I try to think of.
It's a great question. And I think that we should be asking that. I think that's a question that all of us artists, or at least artists who are in the business of selling our art, I think it's something that we should be able to keep in the forefront of our minds a lot. I think it's a hard question to answer. I think that at least here, in this time and that we live in, one thing I would mention is that we won't have the choice eventually. And not eventually, but in terms of the way things are going with this track record, with this administration, with the way the politics are affecting the arts directly, very soon we won't be able to choose what we want to display to the public. Very soon, or at least, I don't want to say very soon as uncertainty, but I say it in the fact of like, that's kind of what it's going. Things getting canceled at the Kennedy Center, all of these grants being redacted from these organizations like the National Queer Theater. I've not done any work with them personally, but I'm very close with the people in that environment and working with them as a company. When I was at Lincoln Center, we were all over the place. But the fact that there's money being defunded from these organizations that purposely try to tell queer stories, minority stories, things that haven't been shared before, it's going to be less of a choice. And we're not going to have any artistic choice. It's going to be less of a collaboration. And so I think that, reiterating to the people who are backing these productions or these projects, it's the return on investment as a people. It's not that, oh man, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say like, investing in the people with these stories
I'm serious.
is going to, it can be a seed to save us. It can be a catalyst to have another renaissance, to revamp, to have a revolution. You know what I'm saying? It gives a springboard. It's a springboard for ideas. It's a springboard for people. It's a springboard for hearts, minds, concepts.
I think that's really important.
Yep.
I think especially the focus on investment in the underlying people, because I do think one fear that I have when it comes to, you know, big media, but is, you know, it would be easy if, you know, if the tone of the nation changes and, you know, major studios start telling the stories simply because it's in vogue, you know, just because it is the popular thing to tell a story about, but without the care and consideration, without the behind the scenes action ahead of it, and without focusing on the people making the stories rather than just how well the story sells in itself, how are we going to actually ensure safe understanding and empathy between everyone, you know?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like, just add like investment in the people is also just like, more that you invest in those people, they can get to the positions of power in order to actually throw money behind the stories that they want to throw money behind, you know? Like, those people who are in power will not live forever. And like you said, I believe in the circumstances that we are, or at least I hope in the circumstances that we are, like, you know, it will cause a revolution. It'll cause us to create. It'll cause us to want for that power. And we will have to invest in those people to be able to create the stories that we want to create at the end of the day.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the note of, you know, invest in people, I got to ask, have you ever had any roles where you felt hired to be tokenized as Black and queer? Like, oh, I'm the diversity checkpoint. What's up?
Yeah. You know what? Yes. Several times. I think we'll just circle back to college years. Senior year, I did Young Frankenstein, and I was the only Black person in that show, on that stage.
I do.
Only Black person.
We were in the blood.
I was the only one. Night. Listen, okay, and I played what? Frau Blucher, who was what? The maid. And you know what? That was the second time I played a housekeeper at the University of Georgia, and that is the second time that I had been the only Black person in the cast who also played the housekeeper.
Wow.
That in terms of, I mean, I was queer already as an actor, you know what I mean? So I guess I wasn't the only queer person. But yeah, so that in terms of an educational, you know, institution standpoint,
Right.
yes.
I don't think I ever put together that, like, look, yeah, they made you the maid.
Right.
Over in my mind, because all the other Black kids in the department were in the blood. Of course, they have one Black show, or Black people go to the Black show. Over in my mind, I was like, Ren made it out. They didn't have to be in the Black show. They got to be in the musical. But they made you the maid. Wow.
I mean, I will say Frau Blucher she's like a titular little character. Like, she has, you know, it wasn't Porgy and Bess, but damn, sometimes the show felt like it. You know,
just the optics of the experience, you know.
It's exactly.
And it hurts because I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but the harm was still there. It was more ignorant than intentional, which still doesn't really diminish the harm. You know,
I agree. I agree, and I don't think I realized the optics of it until post grad. I'll be honest. I don't think so. Just because I was a different person in college, and my frontal lobe was at a different size, and my understanding of the world was different. And things just kind of clicked a little later. And I said, wait a minute.
But sure, that hit you like great.
I sure did. I'm a good guy. That's why I'm getting no alumni emails. But it I don't see no page on a Facebook page about me. Anyway, so, but in terms of TV and film, or on the screen-based perspective, I will say yes. I will say yes in regards to my experiments on BNF, Black Mafia family. This podcast will probably contain spoilers. I think it's been out for a little bit, so I don't know. I think yeah. So I played a character named Henrietta Andreas, and this character was a genderqueer drug kingpin from Detroit in the 1990s. And this character was the first of its kind on this TV show in terms of sexuality, in terms of presentation, and in terms of just personhood, specifically as a queer personhood. It's hard. It's hard to, it's like, okay, let me start off by saying I feel incredibly honored to be able to play this role, to be able to have been trusted with this role. This role, when I read for it, when I got the script, I said, oh, yeah, I want to do this. I want to do it. Hands down, hands down, hands down. And I knew that was a story I wanted to tell. It felt like one I could tell. It was the first time I'd ever gotten to be on set as not an actor who had 2 lines or 3 lines. It was actually just my second time ever on set. And then to be able to do, 9 out of 10 episodes was, oh my God, a blessing. And baptism by fire, I could say. But the character that I played was also a villain. We can go back into queer history and know that, the villain, there are queer tropes and villains. The villain's usually queer coded, and things like that. You can look at it in Aladdin. Jafar, he's a queen, cunty as hell. Okay. And Ursula, she come on, she's a mother, you know what I mean? And so to be a queer character playing a villain felt a little tropey, but also not in a way that, just because I had never seen anything like it before. Henrietta used she, her pronouns. And this character was genderqueer in a time period where the language wasn't as common, or it wasn't as known within different communities. Of course, we had our small, like, Kit Kat clubs of various cities and various places, but of course, being queer was a crime. Or back in the day, maybe it wasn't illegal at that point, but it was a risk that would cost you your life. And so it was not just as forward facing. And Henrietta was a person who decided to challenge those norms in the face. And so anyway, to circle back, I feel like I kind of was a trope for this character, or at least I was a diversity hire for this character, because the filming process was hard. It was I mean, of course, it's hard and challenges of like trying to translate being a theater actor to a TV medium, and having to adjust your technique and whatever. But it was hard in terms of advocacy as an actor and as for the character. To my knowledge, there were not a lot of, or to my knowledge, I had no knowledge of any other or any trans writers on this show or out queer writers on this show. And so there were some scenes and some instances that I would read that would feel a bit inauthentic or just kind of out of nowhere sometimes. And, we would work together, collaborate, and say, I think making this shift would, portray this more. But it was hard because Henry's whole thing was that she wanted to be seen as exactly who she was, which was Henry. She wanted her father, and she wanted, everybody in the game to respect her as Henry, not Henrietta. Henrietta was her name, but she wants to be seen as Henry. I feel very, very protective of that part of that character. She did a lot of crazy shit. I ain't gonna hold. She did murder people. Like, let's be real.
That's everything I hear.
Yeah, but that soft spot I had for her in terms of like the overcompensating because she feels like it's not being read by others, not being accepted. So having to go to these extremes to be validated or to be recognized and respected. I feel like her character, I feel like it was unfortunate that she died. I feel like it felt just heartbreaking because the character, I don't know, the character got used. There was like sex scenes and things. I would say I felt like a diversity hire because it felt I was the only trans actor on set. I don't want to make any assumptions, but it seemed like I was queer, or visibly queer out, and as an actor. And a lot of the actors or people who would be on set you know, this is their first time interacting with a trans actor, it seems. So, you know, kind of having to advocate for getting my pronouns right on set when they refer to me as an actor, refer to me as Ren, and I want these pronouns. I sent an email out before I showed up on set. I sent an email out to the entire production. The difficulty of navigating that on set, because Henry used she, her pronouns. Her character used she, her pronouns. I think that Henry would, you know, if it had been a different time, I think Henry probably would have maybe used they as a pronoun at one point, maybe even a he pronoun. But at that period in time, she, her was what she was going with and what she was accepted by. But the character did wear a chest binder. Character wore, you know, a strap when they were having sex with other people. Excuse me, strap on dildo. Not a guy. Well, yeah.
Thank you for elaborating.
No, I forgot. I forgot that that's something that happened. Oh man, that's funny. But I feel like having to advocate for that. Sometimes it felt like being singled out. And you know, if I felt like it just wasn't getting better, no matter how high up I went. Like I went to the SAG representative for the region, and I was telling her what was going on in terms of pronouns, and she was misgendering me while talking to me about the case. And so it just kind of felt like a void of trying to get respect. I just wanted to be respected. Right. I just want to feel respected so I can come and do my job the best that I know how. And it takes me out of it when you get called the wrong thing. It's like when you go to like grad school, you know what I'm saying? You go to grad school, you study hard, you do all this work to learn something, and you become Dr. So-and-so. And then, you know, you therefore are, from that point forward, are now Dr. So-and-so. So you will be correcting people when they get it wrong, when they call you Mr. Hall. No, it's Dr. Hall. You know what I mean? Or like, you know, when people get married and they change their last name, they're quick to correct you and say, no, I'm Mrs. So-and-so now. It's just the same thing that I'm asking for. It's the same thing that people with different pronouns are asking for. It's just where we're at, you know? So that was kind of difficult.
So I wanted to ask, like, when, you know, trying to advocate for yourself and make these corrections on set, do you think it was just, do you think they were making an effort and it was the ignorance of not being around? Do you think it was, you know, more of a brush off, okay, whatever you say to get us to the next hour? How was the tone being received when you tried to advocate for yourself?
You know, I think it's really interesting because I think maybe you all can relate to this, but sometimes people in the film industry have like a voice that they use to talk to actors to make sure they are calm, cool, and collected. Or like, it's almost like a school counselor voice type thing of like, yes, we just want to make sure that everything's all good. And like, you know, we're not to say that they weren't there for me, because they were. And the efforts were there. Yeah. People were trying. And, you know, there were people on set, like people in the props department who never got my pronouns on. They top tier. They never got them wrong. Or the intimacy coordinator never got them wrong. Like, you know, it's not to say that it was everybody out there, but it just was enough for me to be like, okay, guys. But it was, they definitely, I would say, were trying, but I think also they did not think proactively in terms of how much work or how much conscious thinking would be required having a trained actor on set. Like, in terms of the pronouns, like I remember I was like, can we, like when they send us the call sheet, if we could just, I don't know, put everybody's pronouns next to their name if they want to. And then it just ended up having me and my pronouns on there and nobody else's. And it felt really like,
that is really like,
I don't, yeah. It was like, it was like a label, like a big target right there. You know, like, I don't know.
It was very single you out.
This guy right here.
Like, okay. So that was just kind of like uncomfortable, but like, you know, it was chill. And a lot of the time, it would just happen. Sometimes I'd be on my 12th hour of filming and I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of fighting. I have a wig on. Okay, fine. But it would get exhausting sometimes. Or like sometimes even like people or fans who come and say hello to me on the street, and the gender thing is a big question mark, it seems. And also, I looked at the comments on Instagram when the show first came out because I was curious. I'd never heard anything like this before. And people are rude, people are mean, but not everybody.
People are mean.
People are mean and people are ignorant. And which is honestly, I guess it's part of the reason why I haven't really been on social media since last year. Because honestly, I've never had any kind of backlash towards my identity before like this, ever. Not even in my community friend groups, not in my family. Like I've never experienced that kind of aggression from people I never knew, or just strangers. And I think that me too, honestly, me too. Nobody really said anything about it. Like nothing was really done. Like, what could I have done? Was I supposed to go to Stars and be like, hey, can you guys like say something under these comments or something? Or but then there was like, it was hard because sometimes y'all know Lil Duval.
Yeah.
He watches the show, and I remember getting tagged in something or sent something with his commentary about one of the scenes that I was doing where I was strapping. And it was just like
there was a lot of conversation about that.
It was not. I mean, like the terminology that people use to describe Henrietta, they're like slurs. It feels like we wrote like this. I didn't write it, but this character was written and like I remember all of us talking about this character when we were filming it. Like, oh my gosh, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be like a conversation starter in terms of like identity and what that looks like, and seeing it in this fashion. And it felt like it was going to be a positive interaction. And it has been led. And so in terms of advocating for myself as an actor, it's been really hard because I like don't know what to do. I mean, the money was good. The money's great. The royalties, the residuals, like, I mean, you can't beat it, but it almost doesn't feel worth it because there was no understanding that came from it. There was no, like, I remember doing the press tour, not press tour, but like doing press things, and I get misgendered in the press interviews. I would get misgendered in the articles they would write. I just felt like a piece of meat because that's all people focus on. Or like when Henry killed her dad, and everybody saying, yeah, he was right. Women are too emotional. They missed the entire point. Everything Henry's character and her growth and her reasoning of why she did her things completely lost because of these weird stereotypes or these hangups that people can't get over. And then like me as actors, it was just like they just wild things. I get so many, or I used to get crazy DMs from people telling me they would prove how much of a woman I was, or they were like, let me see your driver's license, or I would kill you, all kinds of bullshit. And it just wasn't addressed. And then the character was killed and didn't get brought back. And there was no redemption for her. No kind of, it just felt like, yeah. Anyway, I think I don't know. And past that fact, it was award season, right? And and production is trying to figure out, like, they wanted to submit the show for Golden Globes and NAACP, yada, yada, yada. They wanted to submit my character for like supporting something, but they put me in the actress category. And I had to tell them I don't want to be considered if I'm in that actress category. And that was after we had filmed, after I brought up all the pronoun things, and so it felt like something like maybe they would get attention because they had a queer character, but then they killed that queer character, and then that's that. Everybody else is back to doing whatever they were doing on the show. Which, it was cool. That's fine. But it just felt like a blip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I know. I tell people this all the time, and it's hard for me to talk about it. I don't really tell people about this part of the experience. because like when people come to me and tell me that they saw me and they look so excited, or they're like, you were so cool, all of these things. And like, there are people out there who say, oh my gosh, it's so good. At least there are studs that come to me sometimes that will say, it's so nice to see someone who looks like us up there. And, and it's great. And it keeps me going. And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's hard to create much noise,
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's for it.
Yes.
If it's any consolation, before this in prep, I went to my brothers and I had them give me, a full rundown. And, my brothers, bless their soul, wonderful folks, aren't as nearly well versed in the subject of other people's identities and whatnot. And I could tell that, they were able to see some layers of your performance, right? Because I tried to ask, and what did I ask? I was like, hey, I got time for one episode. If I got to watch one episode, what can it be? And my brother, who I'd never thought, would say this about a queer character specifically, was like, oh man, but can't do it. It's too complex. Like, you got to watch, you build up. You got to watch the angles that's taken, right?
yeah.
And in that, I got to see at least cutting through it, for some people that, don't just have hate fully spewed up in their hearts, can get this sense of understanding from people with different backgrounds.
Right, 100%. And I think like a lot of the time, I don't take a lot of these things personally, unless I can, if you are being willfully rude, ignorant, stupid, I'm not going to argue with that. And there are times we're all on different journeys in terms of our understanding of this life on earth. We all doing the best we can. And we are learning at different points. And so when there are instances for conversation, for learning, for an exchange of information, absolutely, I take it in stride. And if I know that it's coming from a place of just simply not knowing, that's okay. That's all right. I'm not going to beat you up for something you don't know. Or you only do the best you can with what you have, with what you know at the time. And sometimes I have the capacity to kind of explain, or kind of not explain, but kind of, give examples, or, expand their mind a bit. And sometimes I don't. The same way we have to do whenever we're in predominantly white spaces, where it feels like we have to, sometimes if somebody wants to hear like, why is this something that we can't do anymore? You may feel like you have the capacity to have that conversation. Other time you don't. And so it's in that same vein of like, you're not gonna argue with stupid. You know what I mean? But if there's somebody you met who's like, hey, you think a little backwards, but your heart's in the right place. That's all we're asking.
That's rare.
Yeah.
That's rare.
I think that sometimes is difficult to explain that to people in the moment of like, where are the spaces to kind of have these conversations? Because some people don't necessarily want to offend, or they are, like you said, that bigot, that hate, that they're just like, yeah, I'm just spewing it, and this is what I know, and this is what you're going to believe in. Is like, yeah, like how do we create these spaces? Do we just say like, hey, everybody gets grace here, and we just have a conversation, and whatever we can take from it, great, we're taking from it? Or do we continue to just be silent and be like, okay, cool,
Right.
And is it like your responsibility to have these conversations? Because like, you don't have to. You're just speaking on your experience at the end of the day.
Yeah. And that one person experience isn't necessarily right, or, the only one to live by. It's just one of many.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we all know from being Black and being around white folks, it's exhausting when you have to be the spokesperson for your entire demographic, right? And so it's hard in that way. I mean, I'm privileged just in the sense, I'm a young Black man from LA that ended up growing up in the South in Atlanta. I could have ended up as bigoted as all the rest of them. I was privileged to have friends from a lot of different walks of life, right? And which is, peeling back the curtain, when we were even the ability to, before we have this episode, come in and say, hey, there are going to be questions that we're going to ask. There's going to be topics we're going to cover. And I might not be learned enough to say it in, the most correct way. I might sound ignorant, but being able to lean on like the love and mutual respect that we all have for one another, we can understand there's no intentional hate, find the correction, and get to the bottom of the real thing. Not everybody has that.
Right. It's like something that I've tried to live by, or not live by, but one thing that I try to remember at times when it gets a little bit sticky is that when it comes to conversations like these and bigger conversations around, race, identity, sexuality, gender, politics, all of it, is that you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, or you have to come to terms that you are going to be uncomfortable for this period of time of this conversation. That uncomfortability will end, but you just have to prepare yourself. I feel like if people are a little bit more prepared to be uncomfortable, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable to be able to have conversations that have traction, that make some steps. And it doesn't have to be big steps, Sometimes it's just a seed. Sometimes it's not about growing a whole plant or planting a whole new plant of ideas. It's just trying to sow a seed and then get them to do the rest.
And that's why one of my favorite slogans in the past few years, catchphrases, is "You're not going to like the next thing I'm about to say."
You're not.
Just set the box and getting straight to the truth. It turns out it's an absolute magic trick. It
Let me
helps
write that down.
because you get a little nod and they understand, and then you can just get straight to the point. More people deserve the open honesty.
Yes.
Another question just to ask is do you think that anything could have prepared you for taking on a role like in BMF, or what are things that you're going to take away for the next roles that you're playing, these like genderqueer characters? What are you going to take away?
What I'm going to take away is, I think already just being on set and having that experience, and also directing in a way, has helped me just become more sure of what I want artistically, or at least be able to confidently communicate that better to what I need in that moment as an artist. And so I think the next time I play a role that, let's just say, the character's pronouns differ from mine, or let's just say I'm in an environment where my sexuality, my gender is a minority, like by a steep ratio, then I feel like I will just talk more. I will say more, because I found out in the film industry, if you don't speak up, you get run over. I guess it's like a lot of industries, but in like the pacing of TV and film is so quick that if you do not make it a point to, I won't say yell or raise your voice, but like project and just say what you want, no, waveling or whatever, the sureness, then yes. So I would say, yeah, I think that I just being more confident in myself as a person, as a trans person, I think will just translate well in terms of advocating for what I need. And I think I can only just try, because I advocate because I know that there will be somebody. I know I will not be the last trans actor they interact with. I know that there are other babies out there who want to be actors, who don't fit in the gender boxes, who, what does it look like? What is it going to look like for them? I don't know. I don't know what's going to look like for me. I don't know what it looks like for me. It changes every time. But I have to, because it's not just about me. I'm going to be dead one day, hopefully. You know what I'm saying? And guaranteed, actually. But it's not just about me. So there could be others. I mean, listen, we're all different. There was a time where I didn't think I was trans at all. And I was. And so I'm still thankful for the people who I knew back then, who I didn't really understand what they were talking about. They were always advocating for trans rights or whatever. It was like, oh, okay. So there's pings out there, and there are obviously much, much, much more pings. But yeah, that's all.
That's real. So wrapping up here, we're getting close to the end. Again, thank you so much for sharing your honest experience with it, right? On the note of, you continuing to do the work, I really hope that this ends up being really good work done. I feel like folks listening to this, both familiar and unfamiliar with the community, can understand, how simple it all can be when you bring it down to just humanity and empathy, right? Mm-hmm. You are, another working actor, and you do deserve a certain level of rights and respects in that, in those actions. It's simple as that, right? Before we go, I'm supposed to ask you what book you're reading right now.
Yeah, I have two. Yeah, I have two. Yeah, I have two. The first one that I'm reading, it's like a long one. It's like 600 pages, so I'm taking the time. It's called The Almanac of the Dead. And it's like an odyssey, not an odyssey, but like not the story itself, but in terms of its length, and it's like an epic. Basically, it's a Native American epic that talks about the history of the Native American people and Mexican Indians in the Southwest region, some periods dabbling between the 1800s up to the early 1990s. That talks about the indigenous calendars and how there's a prophecy about white people coming and white people leaving. And so it kind of goes through this whole kind of like vignettes of different characters' stories here and there, different ages. But it's a hefty one. It's quite a novel, and I really enjoy it. And the second one I just bought the other day, Kindred, because I saw the TV show that Janelle Monáe was in, and it scared the shit out of me. Crazy.
Great read.
When I tell you, okay. Like I'm okay. So with the book, like, who's Kevin? I'm like, there was no Kevin in the show. I think I started it yesterday, and I'm on page like 100 something. I started it last night before bed, and I just stayed up and kept reading. It was crazy. So that's what I'm reading right now. Really excited to read it or continue reading it. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's a great book. Honestly, I haven't watched the series because I'm afraid the series won't be the same as the book.
It's not. It's not. But it's the same. It's the same, but it's not. Okay. Like the character, like journey is a little bit different. I mean, I haven't finished the book, obviously, but in terms of the different characters, there's a lot less characters. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But good. Yeah. It's a lot, though. It's a lot. Take your time with it. Pace it, though. It's a lot. Trauma.
Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah, you didn't ask for my advice, but make sure you get some joy up in there because both those reads sound like, ooh, you're experiencing a lot. So make sure you got some joy in there.
Yeah. I'm watching the L Word. It's cool.
On the note of proving we know how to read, my current read is this, a 19-poem series by James Baldwin. I couldn't let y'all go on about books and act like I don't read books. Let it be. Listen, all the listeners got to know I read books.
Keep it reading.
I've been reading, but
you got the
library just accepted my hold on Jimmy's Blues, which is a poetry collection on James Baldwin that I've been waiting to jump into. Life is good.
Period. Period.
Yeah. Before we go, again, I can't say thank you enough. I had a blast.
Ren, thank you. You are a superstar, and we gotta hang out. My God, we got
Take it off the mic. Yeah.
For all the listeners, we are also friends in real life too. Modern.
We don't.
Yeah. Forgot to say that. Yeah.
But
yes. No. Absolutely. I agree. Long overdue.
Is there anything that you want the listeners to know as far as closing remarks, hear about where to find you, or check out anything you got going on? What?
So my name is Ren King. You can follow me on Instagram at ren.eli.king, and that's me on Instagram. And I would say I guess some departing remarks are keep your nose clean and take your time. Keep your nose clean, take your time.
Amen to that.
Yes, indeed.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Y'all too.
Thank you for listening to the HouseAct Podcast. Hope you enjoyed listening as much as we loved recording.
HouseAct is working to assemble a cutting-edge production group using the community we love to engage with so much. If you are interested in supporting us on our journey, please continue listening as we bring you a season of insightful conversation.
We would also love your support in other areas of our arts production. If you're a passionate creative or patron of the arts, please reach out and ask about the exciting work we have roadmapped for this upcoming year.
Help us make this house your home. Yeah, they're going to love that.
No, it's going to be great. Great.